Man, we're so excited to have you on today. All of us have been chatting about it earlier this week and doing a little bit of research on you. And man, you've accomplished some incredible things. So we're stoked to dive in. But first, kick us off. Where are you right now in the world?
So I'm now back in London, in North
Okay.
London, Hampstead Garden suburbs. So up until January the 7th, before the Palisades fire, I was in LA. So we actually last year moved the family from London to LA, was hit by the
Wow.
fires, came back here. Fortunately, we hadn't sold our house here yet. So we're back here for the foreseeable.
Oh wow. Well, I'm glad you guys are
Hence,
all okay. That's insane.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
that is.
pretty crazy.
That
But yeah,
is.
look, I'm much more fortunate than most where we had a place to go to, right? So.
So man, there's you have done a lot, and the biggest the link between us is Patrick McKeon, and we had Patrick on the show. I believe it was last year, and had an awesome episode. So when your name came across and you had been working with him, I was like, Absolutely, we can't wait to talk with him." But you know, a lot of today's episode is going to be about breath work, how it affects your life, how it can benefit your life, the performance factors that can increase from just practicing ancient type methods of breath work. And I've been a big proponent of this. I've been working on my breath work. I actually found Patrick's book, Breathe, and that was how I got into this. And this was a couple of years ago. I was dealing with well, these guys know, but just work stuff. I was just overdoing it. I had a bunch of anxiety. I was not panic attacks, but I was not feeling myself. And I started just doing a little bit of research and stumbled across Patrick and went down the rabbit hole. And it has benefited me immensely. And I know I talk with these guys a lot, but just about I can tell when I don't do it for an amount of time. When I'm not practicing it, and the amount of body awareness that is created for me and the feelings, right? I can now attach with, I have control over a lot of these feelings that go on in my head, which is cool.
Totally.
But before we dive into that, you have an incredible entrepreneurial background. And so this is not your first venture. This is not the first thing you did. So you're 35 years old. Is that correct?
37 now.
37. Okay. So I wasn't that far off, but you've, man, I'm the same age as you. And so just thinking about the trajectory and the things that you have done, I think there's a ton to learn from you and the aspects of just business. What, what made you want to be an entrepreneur? When did you know, as a kid, even that I want to run my own business. I want to not be a hustler, but kind of, I want to hustle my own thing.
Yeah, I think for me, I came into a family of business owners. My mum owned her own business. My dad owned his own business. My grandparents owned their own businesses. We were very much working class, but at the same time, I never really saw me owning my own business as an issue or a hurdle at all. So I think when you're surrounded with that environment, you don't know any different. And I didn't know any different. So I was just like, well, one day I'll probably run my own business. So I realized from a young age, I definitely had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit when I started to go into school and like make things to sell in playtimes and buy sweets on my way to school and sell them at school and make a profit. And every weekend, I just became drawn to, I guess, entrepreneurial opportunities, everything from car washing to dog walking to DJing. Wherever there was opportunity, I was there. So when I started university, I dropped out after a few months and realized that that wasn't necessarily the path for me. And I realized that entrepreneurship was the path I wanted to go down. So I started to have to kind of get some awareness and kind of in the business world. So I started to do a couple of different styles of jobs. And then by the age of 21, I knew it was time for me to do my own thing. So that's when I started my first venture, which was in my mum's hallway at the time. We didn't have space for much. So we set up a computer in my mum's hallway. And I just worked there like day and night for best part of 3-4 months whilst I was still working at my previous job. So I was working all hours, coming home, working till all hours of the morning, and then starting working again, doing that cycle. And after about 3 months, I'd made, it was about a profit of about £50, $70 at the time. I realized that the concept, even though the money was small, the concept I'd proven that I can kind of utilize this skill to essentially make a profit. And that's when I decided to pack up my job. At that time, I was in recruitment, and start kind of full time on this kind of digital marketing, digital media journey that I started when I was 21. So that was kind of the entrance into entrepreneurship. So I guess from a young age, I kind of knew that was what I wanted to do, but that environment that I grew up in really helped me to see that was doable, it was achievable, there was no hurdles in my way, and that was something that I look back on that I was so unaware of at the time, very privileged to see that opportunity versus so many other people I speak to that haven't had that environment. It's really kind of a leap and a massive jump for them to go into this world of entrepreneurship. But for me, I didn't really know any different, and that naivety really helped me.
No, it's so cool to hear. So digital marketing, what was the first thing you did? So are you making advertisements, working with companies on, their whole marketing campaigns? Where did it all begin? Like, what was the first thing you're creating?
It started off as an affiliate marketer. So I was essentially the middleman that was buying ads, being paid on a performance basis to advertise, and therefore taking the risk of my own kind of books, as it were. So, I had to find these kind of pockets of opportunities where I could promote certain companies and make money kind of in between. And that was kind of the affiliate marketing journey. So that's what kind of started off as doing it on Google AdWords. Then I moved to kind of media buying. And when I started to go into media buying, I became quite a big affiliate. So I was spending, best part of $10,000 a day sitting in my mum's hallway.
Okay.
With profits on that. So for me, that was kind of the first kind of journey that I kind of went on, and realized there was this whole opportunity of me as an individual, sitting at a computer making money, and that was still relatively early stages of kind of affiliate marketing. But the concept of, not having to go and buy stock and then sell it was something that, I kind of came in at exactly the right time to learn affiliate marketing and then utilize that, as I kind of grew across other businesses. So that was kind of the first business I started, which was the affiliate marketing business. And then kind of following on from that, I realized, as a marketer, there was an opportunity to create advertising that was much more targeted, that gave advertisers a better ROI, essentially. And that's when I teamed up with my business partner to form what was Captify. And that was when I was 23 years old. And that essentially was a search intelligence company. So we built technology that allowed us to target users based off search behaviors, essentially targeting a user when they're more likely to convert, hence giving a better ROI to the advertisers. So is that like
SEO in today's world, or is that a different thing?
It's slightly different. So we were using search data to power display advertising.
Okay, gotcha.
So when you would see kind of a banner ad or eventually moved into like TV ads, we could actually kind of link that user to the search behaviors to make sure that if they were searching for a flight to London, we can target them with an American Airlines advert or a British Airlines advert. So that's kind of how we kind of tie those worlds together. And that was a crazy journey. We founded it, the two of us, and we grew that over 10 years. We took on VC funding. We sold in July 21. At that point, we had over 300 staff across 8 countries. And I guess on that journey, I was 23 when I founded the company. I was 33 when I sold it. 10 years. And you learn a lot about yourself in those years.
Sounds like you're responsible for every time I tell my wife within earshot of my phone that I need new underwear, I get an ad on my phone for, the latest Hanes, whatever. Like, I feel like you're responsible, maybe. I didn't know it, but I'm like face to face with the guy that's responsible for that.
When you said underwear, I thought you were going to go in a different direction, but I'm teasing. It's still good.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So I was saying that 23 when I founded the company, 33 when I sold it, and learning a lot about yourself in those years. And I went on a journey, very much like yourself, where I became kind of really drained, and I realized kind of mentally and physically, I needed a tool to really help me get on top of my own wellness. And I tried a bunch of tools from meditation, journaling, went to the gym a lot, and nothing really stuck with me. And that's when I started to read books from the likes of Patrick McKeon and James Nestor. and realized there was this whole world of breath work, which was used by elite professionals across the globe and across verticals to really get in the right kind of mental space, but also link their kind of mental fitness to their physical fitness. So I just read book after book after book. And I actually, after reading a couple of books from Patrick, I sent him a message and I said, hey, I've just sold my business. I'm looking to create this breathwork company. I would love to chat. And he just totally pied me off and basically said, really busy right now. Best of luck with it. And I thought to myself, Patrick doesn't realize yet, but I'm going to be working with him eventually, but he doesn't know that yet. So after kind of a few months passed and I started to flesh out the concept of 5.5 and what that was going to be like and how it's going to impact the world, I reached back out to Patrick and I just gave him this long email about 5.5, what it was going to do, how it's going to kind of really help bring a lot of his work to the world as well. And I got an email back just saying, let's talk. And off the back of that, we kind of got super friendly. I then studied with Patrick, biomechanics, the biochemistry, the psychophysiological dimensions, so the link between the mind and the body and the body and the mind, and understood the science behind breathwork. Why was it having the effect that it had on me that nothing else did? And that was kind of I guess the kind of start of the 5.5 journey. So very privileged to work with Patrick, who is the #1 functional breath expert in the world for those that don't know. And worked very closely with him to take a lot of the lessons that he's kind of learned over the years, a lot of the techniques that he's developed, and bring that into a new world of wellness that allows it to be stickier, entertaining, measurable, and that was kind of the foundations of 5.5.
Guys, rodeo season is picking up. It's time to gear up with the best in the business. Beastmaster Rodeo is fully stocked and ready to get you dialed in for the rest of the season. If you're going to ride or compete at your best, you better get gear that works as hard as you do. They just launched their new Pro Gel line. This includes their neck rolls, rig and handle pads, Brazilian and American bull rope pads, and tailbone pads for all you rough stock riders. This stuff is a game changer. It's built to absorb impact, provide unmatched comfort. It's going to help keep you in the game and in the arena longer. And y'all, they're not stopping there. They have new boots, chaps, dummies, all are rolling out this season so you can keep pushing the limits with the best in durability and performance. And as a listener to the Champion Living podcast, you get the exclusive hookup. Use our discount code Champion Living, all one word. Going to save you 10% on your entire order. Y'all, don't settle. Gear up for the best. Gear up with the best. Beastmasterrodeo.com. Check them out.
And I've gotten to test the app a little bit, and all of those things that you just said, entertaining, brings you right in. It's immediate from when the first slide, that like just when you're answering the questions, you're like, oh, even the colors, all of it, it's set up really well. So we'll get into all that, but you're doing those things and that's awesome. We're going to talk about this app, all of the awesome things that you're doing, but there's a couple of things that I've just been doing some research about you and your story that I want to talk about, because I think that people, no matter if they're, rodeo athletes, if they're moms and dads, if they're entrepreneurs, whatever journey they're on, there's a lot of things to be learned from people's success. And one thing I was listening to you talk about is all these things that you've done from an early age, and your parents did the same thing. But what I'm hearing is you guys all found your niche. And I think that's a really important part to being an entrepreneur, right? It can get really easy to throw a really, really wide net and you catch hardly anything. How do you find your niche? And why do you think so many people miss the mark when they're trying to find that in their business or with whatever they're trying to do?
In terms of niche, if you're referring to, the breathwork piece, how I kind of came onto that, I think for me personally, I became much more focused on creating an impact in the world, a positive impact at that. And I realized there was these negative trends that was emerging across depression, anxiety, sleep deprivation, poor health. And for me, that was an opportunity to really take all the lessons I've learned in growing my previous business and apply that to an area that I thought was rife for disruption. For me, I realized that there was no reason why wellness shouldn't be measurable now. we have the ability, we have the wearable technology, it's mainstream. We can actually measure the success and effect that a wellness routine has. So for me, that was kind of really kind of core of it. And I'm kind of always been focused on the high performance, and high performance is about measuring whether that's in a business or whether that's kind of your own data. But how can you optimize yourself, your mind, your body, your sleep? And that for me just drove me naturally into water breath work. There is nothing that competes with breath work. Breath work is the ultimate keys to your nervous system. You can do it at any time, at any place, and you can hack that mind or your body. And that's something that is incredibly unique. We have a lot of people in the app that maybe meditate as well, but they may not be in the right headspace to meditate. They might not have 20 minutes to dedicate to meditation. So they can be in the gym, be walking to the next meeting, just be in between meetings at the desk at work, wherever it may be. They have the opportunity to just plug in 5.5 and do that session and get that guaranteed impact. And that's the beauty about it as well, right? It's guaranteed. If you follow the breath pattern, you will get the physiological effect. So that for me just naturally led me into the kind of world of breath work. And I guess that became my niche, as it were, and realized there's an opportunity to take that niche and make that mainstream and really fit for the masses.
Yeah. Can I insert something real quick? So you use the word opportunity quite a few times there. And it sounds to me like one of the things, like my theory, I think that you're proving is that in order for you to have a successful business, you have to fill a need. And it's that opportunity. It seems like, you would say, I would assume, I guess I ask, like, that was the need that you stepped in when you started initially at 21. There was a need for this middleman in marketing. And now, like, you've just gone your whole life, like, finding a need, something that you enjoy, and then filling that need, and you're able to provide for your family and I'm sure then some on just filling a need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, there has to be demand, there has to be, a need naturally. And I think that, when you look at some of those negative trends, I realize, the data doesn't lie, right? That there is a need for this, be that stress, anxiety, health, sleep. And that for me kind of was the opportunity. And I think, there are some very troubling trends out there, right? Because these negative trends are emerging, they're getting worse and worse. So therefore, it's more important than ever that we can give individuals a tool to use wherever they are, wherever they're doing at any moment. So that for me, was definitely at the heart of it, and ensuring that, I could give someone something in that moment that not only kind of solves that problem for them there and then, but how can we give people a tool to make sure they don't get to breaking point? We know through breath work, if you do this 3 to 5 times a week, you won't get to breaking point. If you don't do it and you're not doing anything for your wellness, then you'll get to breaking point, and you can use breath work in that moment. That will solve it for you in that moment, but that doesn't stop it from happening again. So how can we really make sure that we can be proactive with this? And a lot of the app was designed to be proactive as well. How can we ensure that we can target a user based on biometrics in a moment before they even know they need it, and understand what's the optimal breathwork session for an individual based off time of day of week, meetings in their calendar, wherever it may be, or competitions coming up, from a sporting perspective. So all of these are kind of great opportunities to kind of bring wellness into I guess the next stage, which is why I felt compelled to take the lessons I've learned and apply that to the wellness industry.
Did you ever hit a breaking point like that made you say, I need to do something, I need to find this thing, when you were looking for the breath work? And I'm just, you sold a $100 million business before you're like at 35 years old. Our business hasn't maybe broke $1 million, and I've hit my breaking point a couple of times. So I'm just kind of, what pushed you there? What made you go there? And then I have one more question after that about business. Then we're going to get all in this breath work.
Yeah, have I ever got to breaking point? I've been to breaking point, and I think I thought I was just kind of immune from the effects of growing a business, because I didn't know any different. I was 21 when I started my first business, and for me, that was just the way life was, right? So there's this pressure that mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts, and I realized it was a pressure that I was putting on myself that was doing it. And so I was getting ill like every few weeks. Whenever I'd stop, any holiday that I had, whether it was a long weekend, I'd get ill. Because as soon as I stopped, my body caught up with me, and it was just telling me, like, just slow the hell down. And so that was for me the wake up call, which was, I need to do something about this. And I was getting this tightness in my chest, like continually. And my wife, obviously concerned, decided to book me a cardiology appointment to wire me up and monitor my heart. And I was on the treadmill and everything, and the cardiologist just said, "Yeah, you don't have any issues with your heart."
Healthy, yeah.
And I realized, through that kind of process and starting to learn about breath work, I realized that it was my breathing pattern that was creating this state of fight or flight continually, shallow breathing, tight chested, overactive mind. So as soon as I realized I could hack my mind through my breath, I became addicted. However, I realized that, as much as I was doing this kind of breath work, I still found it boring. I found it hard to build into my everyday life, find the time to do it. And yeah, for me, it also lacked the measurement. So, when I kind of took all that impact that it had on me and how to kind of solve those issues to make that sticky, to make that engaging, to make that measurable, that was obviously kind of the seeds for Plant 5.5. So after I left, sold the business, and I had that kind of period of a year and a half off, that's when I was just reading book after book after book, James Nestor, Patrick McKeon, and just being fascinated with the science behind it. And I couldn't believe just how much science is behind this. It is crazy. Like, and even more so, like, why is this not taught in school?
I was going to say how little it's actually talked about. There's actual, it's crazy. You're right. It's wild, man.
We teach like mindfulness meditation in schools, which is great for a different kind of purpose. But, like if you give someone a tool at a young age, we know through the science that, they'll have a better immunity, a better stress response, a different dental and facial structure, all because they'll know how to breathe properly from a young age. Because, as James Nestor said, 99% of us are dysfunctional breathers, whether that's breathing through the mouth or breathing too shallow or wherever it may be. So, we have this kind of epidemic of bad breathing, and nothing's being done about it. And, that for me was also fuel. How can we kind of get this to individuals today, and how do we get younger into the education system in the future as well? And so we can really kind of tackle that, negative generational cycle that's happening.
We always talk about it's these free things. And what I mean by that, breathing is free. Like you don't have to pay anything to breathe. Journaling is free. Like writing out your time management, doing that all is free to you to do. However, those easiest, simple, free things are the things that no one does because they're not sexy enough. And so that's what, I was hearing, and what you're saying is you're bored doing the breath work, even though you knew how much it helped. You still had a hard time plugging it into your everyday life, which is where this app came up, and your vision for this and fixing this need. Changed everything really for it. But let's go back to even the basics of breathing. Like what I was hearing is, the tightness in the chest, the tons of your thoughts are racing through your head. Basically you're out of control of your mind and your body. But what you described a lot of is symptoms of anxiety, quote unquote, right? And I think we do have an epidemic of anxiety and depression and things like that, right? Which I don't think they maybe could all be solved this way, but I think that a very good first step is being able to control your breath and being able to control your brain. So what is proper breathing? What does that look like? And what are some of the, those, what did James Nestor call it? Insufficient breathing, or those methods that are not up to par, essentially?
Sure. Yeah. So if we start with the optimal breath, and that kind of is what inspired 5.5. So the optimal breath is 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, 5.5 times per minute. So if we just think of how fast we actually breathe as individuals, probably more like 2 seconds, right? Because we're just living in that state of fight or flight. So that is kind of a really big lesson, which you just really slow down your breathing. Then you've got nose breathing versus mouth breathing. So our nose is designed to breathe. It's a really, really major factor that we don't breathe through our mouths. There's no filter. We can't control the amount of air. All these kind of factors is detrimental to how we would breathe, and essentially means that we would breathe dysfunctionally if we were breathing through our mouths. So yeah, the nose breathing, number one, to always just, close your mouth. Mouth is for eating, nose is for breathing. So just close that mouth and breathe through your nose, and just ensure that it is kind of as slow as possible in any moment. And that is kind of the two things that will really kind of change straight away kind of people's awareness, because we can capture that in a moment, we can turn that around. And then another layer to it is, where we're kind of breathing from. So essentially we are supposed to be breathing from our diaphragm. If you watch a baby breathe, they breathe exactly how they should breathe, right? Where they're kind of just diaphragms going kind of outwards and inwards. And that is something that we tend to lose over time as well through the stresses of life. So we often are breathing like up high through our kind of shoulders, even in so many instances, when actually we want to kind of make sure we're breathing low diaphragmatically as often as possible. And that is even everything I'm saying as well is in sports as well, right? So breathing through your nose in sports, like controlling the slowness and speed of your breath in sports, but breathing diaphragmatically in sports. All these kind of directly kind of correlate with each other. And if you kind of have those three elements, you're breathing functionally well. Unfortunately, the vast majority of us don't actually kind of breathe in that way. And even someone like myself, who is aware of it, we get into life stresses and you just notice you're breathing a certain way. So how can we kind of in that moment just, switch, capture it, bring it back to normal to, again, be in control of your wellness? So they are kind of the three key rules to follow just to breathe functionally correct in everyday life.
Absolutely. Those are the first three things that I've paid attention to. Obviously, we've read the same books. But it is so funny that you mentioned even when you know what to do and what it feels like, you can switch back to that. I think it's a stress response, like you said, but all of a sudden you're breathing through your mouth, you're breathing through your chest. It's much more shallow. And I'll notice that because I'll get the same symptoms. I'll get the same side effects. I'll get that tightness in my chest. My biggest dry mouth makes my chest tight for some reason. It triggers I don't like that. But I know if my mouth is getting dry, if I'm doing something, I'm 100% not breathing through my nose. I've also noticed, this is kind of strange, and I've heard this from people just talking to them, they say they're really congested. They can't breathe through their nose. I have allergies pretty bad. The more I keep my mouth closed and breathe through my nose, the more open my sinuses become. It is wild. Even I notice it laying down for bed, I'll be kind of stuffed up. I'll put my mouth tape on. It'll force me to breathe through my nose. 2 minutes later, my sinuses are completely cleared. I can breathe. So I think a lot of people would be surprised if they actually just ditch the excuse and give it a try. It might actually benefit you in more ways than one.
We lose what we don't use, right? So if we're breathing through our mouth, then our nose is not functioning as it should because it doesn't know to, so it's breathing in a different way. So yeah, absolutely. The more you can control it, the better your kind of airways will become. And let alone kind of all the science and the studies behind it, just to show like nitric oxide that comes through your nose, and being an anti-inflammatory, and all these kind of aspects that are incredibly important to just have kind of through nose breathing in general. Anyway,
you hear that, Logan? If you don't use it, you do lose it.
Yeah. I mean, raise your hand if you've just been breathing 5.5 second breaths.
I'm watching you. I knew it. Logan's been so quiet, looks so focused. I'm like, he's breathing.
And I'm just like, got it. Note taken. Haven't read.
But those physiological aspects of it, you mentioned earlier, like a baby will breathe through their diaphragm like properly. But something I noticed with my kids, I got 3 kids, and I observe them like very diligently to kind of see what their natural patterns are like. And it's the same thing like when they are in a state of panic or like throwing a tantrum, like their shoulders are rising, they're breathing through the chest, and they're breathing like very quickly through their mouth. The saliva, the slobber starts coming out. But as soon as I can kind of get their attention and bring their focus back to their breathing, the tantrum immediately stops. And so like it literally, like just focusing on their breath can literally change their physiology and their whole mindset or the state of mind, just by bringing their awareness to it.
100%. And I'm the same with my children. My 4-year-old is throwing his toys out the pram, as it were. He would absolutely kind of have to, if I in that moment, if I turned around to him and said, like, just stop, meditate, that's not really going to do anything at that moment.
No. Yeah.
If I just said stop, take a deep breath in through your nose, really kind of sigh it out nice and slowly. Let's talk. That is emotional regulation in real time. So I exactly the same, and I've kind of pulled that out kind of a few times where if I kind of see that things going in a certain direction, I'd be like, look, stop, breathe, and talk. Because bear in mind, like, they're still developing that part of their brain, right? So having a tool that they can use that actually helps them in that moment, is incredibly powerful, and something that I've used from a young age. Even my son, who's 6, I've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and 18-month-old, and my 6-year-old, he wants the mouth tape every night, if I can kind of just bring that awareness to him at this age, then he has a tool to use right now that is just going to stick with him for life, right? It's like when you're learning a language or learning to ride a bike or wherever it may be, like, do that at a young age and it'll just stick with you. So the more we kind of speak to our children about how to breathe in those moments, the more they'll just do that naturally.
What a cool thing for your kid to be stuck with too. There's so many things that kids get stuck with right from their parents. It's like, why not give them something they can use? But I know in my case, to maybe just outbalance the other stuff I'm going to leave with him. I don't know. But it's free. It's such a good tool. And I want to bring it back to, man, we talk to everybody. We talk to all kinds of athletes, parents, like I was saying. But when we first started what we do now, we're all ex-rodeo athletes. We rode bucking horses. We rode bulls. I wish I would have known about breathwork when I was competing, because, like the shallow breath, the getting worked up, man, you're describing me when I'm about to compete most of the time when I was younger. And I realized I had a pretty serious injury. I had a horse roll over with me. I broke my back. I had a spine fusion. They say, you'll never ride again. You'll never do any kind of fitness again, whatever. Ended up having a very good surgeon. He fixed me up really well. Throughout my rehab process, I got very strong, got very fit, was doing things that the doctors were like, I don't know how you're doing that, but good on you. And I got super into competitive CrossFit, which probably not the best thing with a back fusion, but nonetheless, it went great. Man, that was the one thing that I discovered breathing on my own before this was years before I read any kind of book or discovered Patrick or James or anything. And I realized that I could control those feelings that I would get that were similar to when I'd be getting on a bucking horse. My heart rate would increase. I would talk myself into this. I would put myself there, right? I would work myself up so much. And I realized during those thoughts, I wasn't breathing at all. I was almost holding my breath, and my CNS would just be firing up. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest. I could feel it in my throat. My palms are sweating. I feel like I could throw up. And once I realized that if I could just slow down and breathe through my nose and only my nose, and I was doing a 4-second, 5-second, not really knowing what I'm doing, I was just naturally doing it, what felt the best, getting it through my belly, those feelings would go away. And so 7 years after my injury and surgery, I got to get on a bucking horse again. And I got to use 3 months of training with breathwork, with actually training correctly. Like we've discovered this method that we do. And it was the best ride I've ever made in my entire life, And in that point, it was when I got off that horse and was like, oh man, I've uncovered something. Like, we figured some things out, right? And I think so many athletes, so many parents, could benefit from this, just such simple thing. And, doing that 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. I will say though, that when I first did it, and when I first read the book and was practicing it, it's not easy, especially if you're not used to it, right? I'd be searching for 5 seconds. I'd be at 3 seconds. I got no more air to get in. Like, I'm full, What do you recommend when someone is just beginning this process? How do you practice this and ease into it?
Yeah, I think that's actually, why we even designed the app in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because even though, let's say 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, it's still hard to be motivated to do that. And for how long are you doing it? Are you doing it right? So, for me, it was about, how can you see someone, see a coach, hear a coach? We know that the biological effects will change and the physiological effects will change based off of how your posture is whilst you're doing your breath work. So how can we make sure we're seeing a coach, that they're showing us exactly what to do in that moment? They're guiding you through the whole process. So from start to finish, to make sure that you kind of see that through. And obviously off the back of that, how can we kind of show you the measurement and the impact that it had to really show the effects and the benefits? So, we have beginner plus, intermediate and advanced within the app. And, that was very much designed for that purpose, right? Which is, where do you start? Like, I've never done breathwork before. I'm going to, I don't want to just watch a circle get bigger and smaller on a screen. There's only so much of that you can take. So how can you really kind of go one step further? But more importantly as well, if you were going to the gym, every day, you're not going to do the same exercises every day, right? You're going to change that up. You're going to try new things. So how can we build in like different elements of breath work to make sure that you're not just focusing on one thing, but actually all areas? And that's why we've got mind, body, and sleep. They are all interconnected, right? So we will be able to give you certain mind classes, certain body classes, certain sleep classes based off either, your preferences and your goals. Maybe you're training for, an upcoming competition, or whether that be kind of focus on, your biometrics and what your data is telling us that your body needs more of or less of. So we can kind of optimize towards that. So yeah, for us, it was about how can you make sure that you can give someone the optimal class for them at any moment in seconds, based off kind of their skill level as well. So yeah, for me, that was kind of the purpose of, creating 5.5. How could I have a tool that, even though I knew what to do, how could I have a tool that actually guides me through it, make sure I do the breath work, can track my progress and all these kind of elements. So, I would say that, if either try 5.5, but there is, other types of, maybe content out there that they can try as well. But ultimately, that's what we designed 5.5 for, to make sure that we can kind of service the beginner breath workers that have never done it before, and then advanced breath workers. We have athletes, Olympians that use the app daily, and they are, continually looking to kind of better themselves. And it's funny that even some of these kind of athletes that use the app, they're not just doing the advanced sessions. They're also doing beginner sessions as well for certain moments. Maybe that's just to be focused before kind of an event, or maybe that's kind of like to wind down and transition between kind of lifestyle changes, wherever it may be. So it's really interesting that even though people are advanced, they still choose to kind of do this kind of wide array of different exercises based off the outcome that they're looking to get in that moment.
I think that's a really important thing to be said. Even no matter how elite an athlete that you may be in whatever you're doing, or a high level entrepreneur, there's still times where that baseline, that lower level of anything, is going to be what you need. I relate it to training, to strength and conditioning. We can't, lots of days you can go hard, but that one day doing a mobility or beginner type workout is what the body needs, right? And I assume it's the same as your breath work. You're talking about these advanced techniques. Is it like exhausting at times to go through these advanced techniques, if that makes sense? Is it like taxing on the mind at all, that to get, am I making sense at all?
Yeah, totally.
Is it intense, if that makes sense?
It's different intensities, and it depends what you're trying to do. So, if you are, optimizing your performance, you could be running and have like, do slow breathing whilst running, right? Or breath holds whilst running. And that is incredibly hard to do, but you're actually kind of controlling your heart rate in that moment by doing that, let alone like increasing your carbon dioxide tolerance, activating kind of your diaphragm. All of these things are happening, within that run. So that's kind of, one element of it. Then you've got other elements of it, which is if you are, really looking to slow down your heart rate, you're really kind of maybe looking to, come out of a state of, anxiety, panic, or stress, wherever that may be. So, if you were doing an advanced session for your mind in that moment, then that could be, like almost the equivalent of like a 20-second exhale. So you're really, really activating your parasympathetic. And so how it works is the more if you breathe out more than you breathe in, you activate your parasympathetic, your rest and digest state. If you breathe in more than you breathe out, you activate your sympathetic, your fight or flight. So, depending on what you're trying to do, if you're trying to be energized, then we're going to kind of push you to kind of activate the sympathetic. If you're really trying to de-stress or get to sleep, we're going to really ramp up the parasympathetic. So depending on what you're trying to do, and depending on, the intensity of the level that you're at, depends on, obviously, the exercise that you're doing and how easy or kind of hard you may find that. So it's not so much about sometimes it's about intensity, and sometimes it's just about kind of like really, really, really slowing down the breath. The slower you breathe, the slower your heart rate. The slower your heart rate, obviously, the more you're activating your parasympathetic, and putting you into a state of rest.
This is going to be a little bit of it's not off topic, but it's a little different of a question. We have a lot of athletes. I'm sure you know a lot of people. Pre-workout's a big thing, right? Taking a supplement to get yourself energized. Do you have athletes or worked with athletes or people that have, replaced maybe a supplement with this breath work that is able to get them to that level they need without because we talk about supplementation, you add caffeine. This is huge in the rodeo world because it's an intense thing. People think the faster I go, the better I'll do. Yeah. And it's actually the opposite, right? If we could slow you down and get you to react to what's happening, that's when you're going to do the best. You're never going to think ahead of what's going on out there. So they drink caffeine, they drink whatever to get them up to this level. And I know me and Logan have dealt with this. I'm already a naturally go fast person. We already go headfirst into everything. I needed 0 caffeine to get on bucking horses. I would still drink it and it would give me terrible side effects. My heart rate would be through the roof. I couldn't control my breathing. Heck, I'd throw up half the time. It's just too much, right? When I found out, I never even messed with the getting my sympathetic nervous system activated with breath work. It was always trying to activate my parasympathetic to get me out of that fight and flight because I was always there, right? Is it possible to replace, a supplement or something like that and get yourself to that level of ready to go with breath work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were really kind of wanting to, I guess ramp up the energy, you would do, there's exercises like rapid fire breathing, whereby you'll kind of go in and out just very, very fast. There are exercises where you'll just do deep inhales, deep exhales, as full and fast as you can. That also is activating. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that totally naturally. You do not need caffeine to kind of get that dopamine hit at all. So yeah, something that obviously kind of people don't know, right? So they don't know, but at the same time, having those supplements, if it's for that purpose, there's just no need. Zero need. And you've also got other things outside of breath work, that will also give that dopamine hit, like cold plunges and things like that. And when you tie in breath work to cold plunges as well, that obviously gives you a certain effect as well. So yeah, in any moment, if I was kind of like, I don't drink coffee, like I haven't ever, if I was looking to energize, I would just do an energizer breath work session. And in 60 to 90 seconds, yeah, you're fully alert, fully ready, fully energized. And again, it's just science, right? Like it's just science.
I love 60 to 90 seconds, y'all. Drugs don't even work that quick. So that's there's nothing better and it's free. Go ahead, Logan. I see you got something.
I have like, I don't know, question statements. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof?
Yes.
So I would assume that you have, but I don't know how big of anyway, I just like randomly stumbled on him like back in 2017. And what was really an eye opener for me, I was like, this is a crock of junk. But then I listened to it was like a YouTube video anyway. And he took he had this group of people hold their breath for as long as they could hold it. And most people were like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 50 seconds maybe. And then he took them through this 2 or 3 minute breathing routine in which, they were in really big and out. I can't remember exactly what it was. I'm going to butcher it. But regardless, it was like 2 or 3 minutes of this breathing routine. And then he had them immediately go back and hold their breath. And they were holding their breath for 2, 3, 4 minutes. And I was like, I don't know. It's doctored. And so I like laid on my bathroom floor. I can remember doing it. I laid on my bathroom floor, timed myself holding my breath. And then I listened to the coaching, the cues, and I went through the breathing. And I held my breath for it was over 2 minutes, which was incredible. The first time was maybe 40 seconds. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And so just the last year of my professional rodeo career, I started to engage. I want to say that I used like a box breathing though, where it was like a 4 in, a 4 hold, a 4 out kind of thing. At any rate, what I noticed, and I think that I'm trying to form a question intelligently here. What I noticed, and I want to ask, I guess, if you've noticed this or you have had athletes give you feedback, is that my heart rate was obviously much, much slower during competition. And the benefit to that was the cognitive presence. You know, when you're riding a bucking horse, it's 8 seconds. Then you have to get off the bucking horse. I mean, we're all out life or death for 20 or 30 seconds. And so the majority of my career, it was like, and I'm like, what just happened? But when I was able to start taking control of my breath before I competed, it was like I'm not gonna say it was slow motion. It's a bucking horse, but
you
it
had a wearable
definitely
too, like you
slowed
tracked
things
it.
down. Yeah, it slowed things down, and I felt more. You still don't have time to like, oh, I need to try to do this and then do it. It has to be a reaction. But my performance increased because of that. Is that something that you would say is pretty normal for athletes that engage in breath work before competition?
Totally, yeah. So and again, it's the science of kind of the oxygen to the brain and all these things. But essentially, that kind of level of breathing is just balanced out right. You don't want to go like so far down the road of activating the parasympathetic whereby you're almost sleepy before doing it. Right? At the same time, you don't want to kind of be kind of overactive and over energized because then you have like racing thoughts and everything else. So you're looking to balance in the middle, and box breathing is a nice exercise to do that, and something that a lot of like athletes do use. And that is to ensure that your brain is balanced, your mind's balanced, your body's balanced before kind of like going into that environment. So incredibly important, because that is how you think logically. If you were on either side of the spectrum, outside of that kind of like what we call like your focus zone or your flow state, then obviously you're not working to your optimal, and therefore you're not going to perform at your best.
I love that.
Logan also wore a Whoop during that time, which I think was a really important thing. I mean, you can feel the differences, but I feel like when you get to look back and see the history of, you were around like 180 to 185 without breath work, right?
It was, yes. When I competed, my heart rate would be like 170 to 180. And I can remember being at a rodeo and talking to some elite guys. It was probably like one of Doug's brother and Caleb maybe. And I was talking about my workouts at the time. I was stupid and didn't know what I was doing. And so I tried to get my heart rate really, really high, and workouts just made them grueling, punishing, stupid, because I was telling them, well, I want my, I'm trying to replicate the heart rate I'll have when I ride, like 170, 180 beats a minute. And they both looked at me like I was an idiot, and I didn't understand it at the time. Now I realize why they looked at me that way. However, what I say that to say, when I started tracking, I would get my heart rate was highest during my warm up before competition. And then I would get my heart rate down sometimes to like the 120s or 130s, usually was pretty typical when I competed. And that, I think, is what one of the things that you've captured with 5.5 is the gamify, the opportunity for me to track that metric and potentially get better at it, and grow in that. I'm a sucker for anything that I can level up in. And I think that that's one of the things. It sounds like, I'm not going to lie, while we've been here, you've sold me on the app already, and I've downloaded. I haven't opened it because I don't know if it makes noise when you open it. I didn't want to do that, but I downloaded it just a few minutes ago, and I'm really excited to dive in because I think that tracking metric is huge for performance. If you can't track it, you can't change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it depends what wearable you wear at the moment. Like it's fully integrated with Apple Watch. We've got to wear it for like sleep and daytime. So you'll be able to track your mind, body, and sleep scores. And then very soon, Whoop, Aura, Fitbit, Garmin, and everything else. That's fine. No worries. I know the feeling of having family in the background. So
yeah.
I'm amazed they've been quiet for this long.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Well, we're the same way. Paul's got a bunch of little kids. I've got a 8-year-old girl, a 6-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old boy. And Paul's got a 4th one on the way. So we're gluttons for punishment here ourselves.
Yeah. That's for sure.
I had some things about the app because I actually got to mess around with it. I love that it asks you so many questions when you get onto it. What are you looking for? What are you experiencing? What's your experience level? What trackables are you wearing, or wearables are you wearing? I'm sorry. And then when you open it up is the best part, because I've had the Breathwork app. I've had a couple other ones. This one reminds me, and I don't agree with Peloton on a lot of things they do, but what they created, and they essentially the same thing. They made riding that bike entertaining and fun, right? And when I open the app, there's essentially the same feeling, like I don't know if they can see it, but the colors are so, they bring you in, and it says, hey, Doug, let's rock your day. What do you want to do right now? And it's, wake up, find your flow, fuel your performance, boost your energy. You have all these options, and you just keep scrolling. There's recommendations for you based off of what you've plugged in on your questionnaire in the beginning. There's all these lists of new classes that you can take based off whatever your goals are. And this, for me, these are my favorite things, because I'm a total music person. Like, if you associate music with anything, I'm going to like it more regardless. And you guys have like picking based off of a genre of music the class is in. And so that's just so fun. That's so much better than just this. Yeah, like you said, the bubble's getting bigger on the spring, it's going down on the screen, and it's just this, ambient noise. So when I open this, it immediately makes me feel like I'm having a good time, no matter what I'm doing, right? And I think that's an important part. And then the price is nothing. You even talk about, go back to your monsters or whatever, $2 a day. That's $60 a month. Well, this is $39 a quarter or something like that, right? So it beyond makes up for the dollar amount, and something that you can do for no matter how you're feeling, right? Like, if you're tired, if you're anxious, if you need to boost your performance, like increase your productivity, your creativity, all of the things you can do through your own breath, right? Through your own nose. I think it's awesome, man.
Paul, are you going to download the app if it can increase productivity? I feel like you should maybe the company will pay for it. Just kidding. I'm joking. I'm just joking. You didn't find that funny at all. Okay.
No, your jokes are not very funny. But Adam, I do have a question, like especially for our listeners, because I do want them to all download the app. We now know about all of the benefits of breathwork, but what are the specific things that we are tracking on 5.5? Like, what does it show you? How does it gamify it? What can folks see or plan to see the benefits from?
Yes, so there's kind of the three categories of mind, body, and sleep. So essentially, at the moment, it's just obviously with Apple Watch, but all the other wearables coming very soon. In each mind score, so we've obviously had to work with the likes of Patrick McKeon, who's world leader in functional breathwork, but we've also had to work with world leaders in biofeedback. Richard Gurwitz, University of California, ran the World Institute of Biofeedback. Marco Altini, advisor like of Aura. Dr. Jay Wiles, advisor likes of Whoop, works with many of the world's top athletes. So these are individuals that have worked very closely with us on understanding from a biometric perspective and linking biometrics with breath work. So how can we kind of ensure that your mind score is as accurate as possible? How can we ensure that we're giving you content to increase that mind score over time? Same with body, same with sleep. Because wearables are great, but if they tell you your HRV has gone down by 10%, A, you don't know why, B, you don't know what to do about it. So if we can kind of take those two worlds and bring them together, which we have, and take the kind of the value of the data that you're getting through that wearable, pair that with the optimal type of content to do in that moment, and that's kind of where it kind of meets. So mind, body, and sleep is based off the measurements that you can kind of track, but also kind of based off the content that you can consume, and obviously kind of pairing that together.
Cool. So kind of follow up ish on that. One of the things that Patrick taught us about was the Bolt score. So like really up until now, like that's like the only thing that I've had to track was like how long can I hold my exhale or whatever. So is it similar to that on the tracking side of things? Or
no? So we're very kind of science orientated. So
okay.
We would make we need to understand that data to kind of serve you the right thing. Now, the problem with Bolt score, it has been good up until now, right? Before wearables came in. Right. But you can get a different score based on what time of day you're doing it, based on how much you push yourself. So there's a lot of inaccuracy with Bolt score, but that was the best that people had until now. But actually, when you're kind of going through that process of onboarding a 5.5, we're analyzing your biometrics to understand what state that you're actually truly at, based off a variety of things. Your breath patterns, your resting heart rate, your sleep, your mind scores, all these kind of things kind of come through, your HRV. And these are incredibly important for us to truly understand, without having any biases, exactly what level you're at. Because someone can come and you can be an athlete and come in and be like, well, I'm an athlete, I'm an advanced breather. That's not what your data says. Data says you're a beginner. So we will kind of make sure you kind of serve like beginner sessions, because people don't really know what level they're at, because stuff like the bolt score, you can manipulate, right?
But I chose beginner plus on when I did the onboarding, because I was like, I feel like maybe I could be better, but I'm always going to err on the lower side of, and not be biased towards myself. But
beginner plus is a good level. Beginner plus, but you couldn't accelerate really quickly. And the beauty about breath work is just like you were saying, Logan, where you were doing 2 minutes of breath work, Wim Hof method, and straight away you were holding your breath for over 2 minutes. Right? You can see that development really, really fast. Again, like going to the gym. If you go to the gym 5 times in a week, you're going to be able to lift heavier the following week. It's just the way it is. And same thing with breath work, lung capacity, carbon dioxide tolerance. These are all things that you will improve on step by step every session you do. The negative of that, though, is when you stop doing it, just like when you stop going to the gym, you'll drop off, right? Which is why it has to kind of be, in your everyday life, a few times a week. You're talking like 3 to 5 minutes, right? But ultimately, if you don't do it, you'll see the drop off. But when you do it, you'll see it climb back up. And that's the beauty about breath work. So even though you're kind of beginner plus, you can certainly just accelerate very quickly, and you can push yourself to the advanced sessions if you want to. There's nothing kind of stopping you to seeing kind of where you're at on those advanced sessions and how far you're getting along. Because some people are like super surprised. They do the advanced session and they're like, I had no idea I can kind of get there. And now they're just like gone from beginner to advanced in the space of like 2 weeks. And now they're just focusing on the advanced session. So it does kind of really vary depending on, what you want to get from the app as well, obviously.
Hui has the best gear because it's tough. It's durable. It withstands the test of what we put it through. And that is why I am a big supporter of Hui brands. Guys, from hats, apparel, whatever you need, they've got you covered. They are the perfect blend of rodeo style and athletic performance. You can check them out at huibrands.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving, all one word, is going to save you a little bit at checkout.
It's pretty cool to hear. It's something that you get better at quickly, the more consistent you are at it, right? And I can just speak firsthand. It's addicting. The addicting part for me is I made it a game before we had cool apps like 5.5. And to me, it was, and I told Logan this, same as mobility work. It's that non-sexy thing that gets so boring and you're like, I hate this. I made it a goal. My goal was to make it go by as quickly as possible. And the way I could do that was diving straight into focusing on my breathing. So I use my breath work while I'm doing my mobility usually. And it helps me, and they're static holds. They're not like I'm doing active mobility, right? There's like a pigeon pose or, I don't know, whatever it is, any kind of static pose. But that is where I found out that time can go by like that when you dial in your breathing. And I would notice these 3 or 4 minute poses. Usually I'd be sitting there rapid breathing through my chest by the end of it because I'm tired of it. I'm letting my brain win. Once I focus on that, those 4 or 5 minutes would go by like it felt like 30 seconds sometimes. And I would even have to double check my clock. Like, no way that's time. Like, not a chance that was that long. Once I realized I could get into this, I called it like flow state, getting my brain into this, we're just present right here and now, nothing else matters. That's when I got really addicted to it because I said, how much further can I push this? And, when I was doing competitive CrossFit, there's lots of times where that training helped me push harder because I could dial into my breath. And I'd close my eyes a lot of the time, even working out, lifting a weight, you're in a high rep set. Just close your eyes and breathe, and your body will do the movement. And man, thrusters, I don't know if you've ever done any kind of CrossFit, but a front squat with a press, right? There's like a golden ticket to Puke City for me every single time, right? Like, no matter what, if there was over 10 reps, I was going to throw up if I was going to push hard. Once I found my breath work, I never threw up one time after that. And I'd push myself I'd feel like I was blacked out half the time pushing, Yeah. But I had control of my mind and was able to tap into that. And that was the addicting part for me. And we do a thing, it's called the Optimal Performance Academy. And so as sport of rodeo is been far behind in any kind of developmental side of anything for the athletes, whether it's strength and conditioning, mobility, injury prevention, breath work, the biohacking essentially, right? It's all so new. But we have doing vision work, visualizing your ride is one of the most important things in rodeo. We say it seems like 90% is physical, but it's actually 90% mental and about 10% physical. All of these guys, when we get them into these visualization times, we realized the first 2 times we never sat them down and actually did it with them. We just talked about it. And we realized that you can talk about it all you want, but until you get someone in that place and teach them how to get there, they have no clue, right? It's like a surgeon telling me how, here's the scalpel and do this. I have no idea. It seems like it's just a made up thing. What Paul did, and Paul found this thing on YouTube, which is the cool thing about today's world. There's all kinds of resources out there, right? And this is before we knew about your app, but it took them through guided visualizations, and a big part of that is their breathing. And so Paul got to take 20 of these athletes. We laid them all down there in the field, or they sat in their chairs and really closed their eyes, and he got to help them learn how to control their breath, which was then tied to their thoughts. And watching them go from the first day doing it, and he's kind of, what'd you guys see? Not a whole lot, man. Like, was just trying to breathe. And by day 2 and day 3, man, they're starting to finish rides. They've lost track of the time. 20 minutes goes by and they're the same thing. No way. I just felt like I was there. I could smell the things. I think the breath work, getting that, whatever part of your CNS you need to activate going, is such an important thing. With your guys' app, you would start with a beginner? Is that what you're saying? Like, for the person who's never done this?
Yeah, absolutely. But just to your point, it's funny that I didn't realize when I started 5.5 that breathwork is the gateway to all wellness routines, right? You can't meditate if you don't breathe correctly. You can't visualize if you can't breathe correctly to get there. Even like performance, you're not going to get the optimal performance if you don't breathe right to get there. So I didn't realize that actually, like, you've got this breath, which is the gateway to all of these other aspects, which is why, like, we've also seen a lot of people use it as an additive to existing wellness routines, whereby people maybe have tried to, like, they're not in the right environment to meditate, they'll choose to do a breath work, or they might choose to do a breath work and then a meditation or a visualization, wherever it may be. I've kind of not really kind of put it into that context of visualization before, but absolutely it is, hand in hand with kind of like a meditation, right? Going back to your question, I think you can probably start just beginner, right? And anyone that comes in, beginner plus, you may even struggle on some beginner pluses, right? Because if you've never done breath work before, like, even just a 3-4 second hold, you're going to feel it. But it's really important you kind of persevere through it, right? And just kind of climb that ladder as fast as you can. I think that, someone that's coming on beginner, you've got like a load of sessions, to amazing music. We've obviously done deals with Universal, Sony, Warner, all the major record labels, all the major publishers, to allow us to kind of, use that music that you can breathe to. So straight away, you will be able to, find kind of classes that are entertaining. You'll be able to find a class that's different kind of length based off the time you've got to dedicate to it. And then obviously based off the different skill set level, kind of, go through kind of that journey. You can always just switch your level if you're finding it too easy, too difficult. But what I would say is, don't assume that because you're an athlete, you're in advance, because that correlation doesn't necessarily add up.
Yeah, I worded that question terribly. What I meant by that is if you are someone that is working on visualization and never done breath work, master one and then let's go to the other. And I think mastering the breath work, getting into that beginner level class to get started, get good at that, and then we can start adding another element to it, right? And I just think that any of you out there struggling with your visualization, this is your first step. Download this app, get started. Yeah, it's going to start you out exactly where you need. And the best part, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and it's going to go quick. We call it newbie gains in the gym. I think it's the same exact thing in the breathwork game. You're going to get better faster.
I think if you're doing that for visualization, you need to be doing like a real what we call a down regulation. So that's how you get into that state. Cool. If you kind of done like an energizer session and tried to do that, you're back to kind of problems you were saying about caffeine before a tournament. So I think if you got to kind of get like a nice down regulator one, get into that kind of that flow state, and then off the back of that, absolutely that will come so much easier to you from a visualization perspective.
That's an awesome bit of info, y'all. Adam, thank you so much for being on here today, brother. This has been an an hour has flown by. I think we'll definitely be reaching out for another episode down the road. Where can people find out more about you, brother?
You can obviously on the App Store, so you can search 5.5. Also on Instagram, TikTok _5.5. So we kind of publish kind of a lot of stuff on there. Obviously, we've only launched a few months ago, so it's still really early stages. But we have, we just released our haptics last week, which we're super excited about. So essentially, that means that you can feel the vibrations on the phone, which is again like really activating, that parasympathetic state when you're getting the vibrations going hand in hand with the breath work. So all of these things are stuff that we're kind of bringing out, new features in the product every kind of month or two at the moment. So you can stay up to date with all the new releases on Instagram, or you can obviously sign up 5.5 and you'll obviously have access to all of the features as of when they come as well. But at the moment, we've got kind of like some really kind of game-changing features in there, and nothing like this has ever been done before, right? So those people that have tried, maybe other breathwork apps, and have a preconceived perception of 5.5, this is, very different. But you can try it for free, and see how you kind of get on in a few days, and then kind of make a call after that. But, we obviously see a lot of those people that, trial it, that do these sessions, become hooked very quickly for all the reasons that you said, Doug, for all the reasons that I got hooked on breathwork, for all the reasons you got hooked on breathwork. So when you see it, it's very hard to unsee it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Catch that bug too.
Man, it's been, like I said, we've had an incredible time chatting with you. Y'all check out their app, 5.5. I believe you spell it out, FIVE point, POINT 5 again. Check them out in the App Store, y'all. Follow them on Instagram. And until next time, we'll catch you later.
This, we know that you're committed to upping your game in the arena. And we're teaming up with the Rodeo Now app to help you do just that. The Rodeo Now app allows you to record, upload, and catalog your rides and runs, review your performances in slow motion, and our favorite feature, if you're not familiar with your stock draw, you can search your animal by name to get all the intel you need to make your next ride a winning one. Join the rodeo revolution today and download the Rodeo Now app for free. It's available in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store.
If you want to learn more about our coaches and program options, make sure to swing over to our website at www.championlivingfitness.com. You can fill out the Become an Athlete form to set up your free consultation and have all your questions answered by a coach.